Now, it's my job as a YouTuber, as a Game of Thrones YouTuber more specifically, to sort through these fake leaks and these real leaks and try to provide you with, at the very least, some sort of entertainment to help you get through the long nights. Well, that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video. Now, I've received dozens upon dozens of these supposed plot leaks from people who work on set, people who were extras, some people who actually did makeup, numerous things anyone can make up to say, hey, I've got this background information on Game of Thrones. Now, usually those come a dime a dozen and they get sent to the spam folder on my Twitter section. Speaking of which, you can follow me over at Sir_Hunts. But anyway, this leak that I'm bringing to you guys today is not only somewhat credible because it lines up with some of the filming leaks that we know are confirmed for Game of Thrones Season 8, but also it has some very interesting ideas that I think fit the thematic elements for Game of Thrones Season 8. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and begin. Before we get started, please slap a like on this video as the like goal is going to be 422. Also, make sure you're subscribed and then make sure you have your notifications turned on all the way. It's my job to keep you entertained throughout this long night. Okay, so now it's sort of just as a disclaimer, this is not written in the traditional sense of a plot leak where it tells you what happens in episode 1 through episode 6, and it's more so just mentioning some major plot points that are somewhat backed up from the filming. But this person did mention, by the way, I'm not going to tell you where this person got their information from, like really any information about my source, just in case this does turn out to be credible. This person won't be held legally responsible for this information. But anyway, the leaker claims that Jaime will in fact die in the battle at Winterfell, which takes place during episode 4. Now, we do have some legal documents that sort of support this, saying that Jaime Lannister is going to be paid for every episode of season 6, but that he's apparently only going to be filming for episode 4. Now, we do know that, something like that has happened before with the actor that plays Joffrey, where he was set to only be on for a few episodes, but then we had one episode of his dead body, and then same with Jon Snow. We can have that same sort of deal going on with Jaime, where in the last 2 episodes, we see shots of his body. Then he goes on to say that Cersei has Euron and the Golden Company attack Winterfell as Jon and Daenerys arrive. Chaos ensues. The Night King attacks shortly after the Golden Company and Euron are pushed back. Theon leaves to go to Pike since he's given word that Yara has been taken back there, which sort of makes sense. I'm going to save my thoughts for this towards the end. The Night King ends up destroying Winterfell in and of its entirety. Bran, Arya, Sansa, and the others escape to the crypts of Winterfell. The Night King raises the dead and continues south. While in the crypts, Jon is shown the Maester's journal by Sam and Bran. Now, this is the journal that Sam initially found out with last season, that Jon's parents were Rhaegar and Lyanna, and they were legally wed, making Jon Snow Aegon Targaryen and the next in line for the Iron Throne. Now, there's also a heartfelt Stark reunion in these moments, and episode 4 ultimately ends with the Night King's death. Overwhelming force and dragonfire are the cause of his death. Bran helps with this by distracting the Night King in the Weirwood net as Jaime stabs him with Widow's Well. So I must say that I didn't see that coming. Bran noticed it's weird that the Night King didn't shatter to ice like the White Walkers. Jaime dies from his wounds in the arms of Brienne, who was in the crypt protecting Sansa. Now that red flag. At some point, Sansa was wounded by an arrow from Euron's troops, and she succumbs to the poison and dies towards the end of episode 4. After the credits cut to black, we are shown an after credit scene, sort of like, what Marvel does. And this scene involves Viserion and the Night King and many other dead troops being tossed into a pile, ready to get burned, when just then the Night King's eyes open and the dead begin to rise. Now, just my initial first thoughts on the first part of this leak. It doesn't really make sense, to have the Battle of Winterfell and supposedly Jon Snow and Daenerys and the Golden Company, they all arrive in episode 1. Why is the battle taking place in episode 4? Now, he could have easily miswrote the plot leak and he meant that, Jon and Daenerys arrive in Winterfell, then there's a few episodes that go by, and then ultimately we have the Golden Company attacking Winterfell in episode 4. I don't think so. That means there would only put 2 episodes left after this massive battle, and really something like this should be taking place in those last episodes. I don't really know about the timeline. I will, further try to reach out to this person to maybe explain what exactly happens in the first 3 episodes that prolongs the battle to not take place until episode 4. Now, there is some more evidence for Jaime Lannister dying in episode 4, and I kind of want to save that for another video. There is some more information that I need to get through on these leaks, and it's just easier if I just propose all the information to you, then we can debate about it down in the comment section, and then when I'm making this sort of like cutting through this leak in my next video, it makes it easier because I'll have all of my information right there. Another thing that sort of raised hairs on the back of my neck was the fact that supposedly Sansa dies the same episode as Jaime. I don't know if they will both die in the same episode. I do think that there's a big chance for both of those characters to die in the finale of this show, but I don't know if it'll be the same episode. As far as the way that Sansa dies, I don't really know how to feel about that. The whole poison fits in line with the theme of Cersei. She is a poison seductress, if you will. She has removed many of her enemies this way before in the past, so it wouldn't be completely out of question for her to tell Euron, or for her to tell the Golden Company rather, to coat all of their arrows with poison just in case they miss a dead and hit someone who's alive if they're going to die anyway, because, you know, at the end game, Cersei doesn't only want to have the Night King taken care of, but the Starks as well. So if she intentionally tells some of these Golden Company members, or Euron tells some of these Golden Company members to try to aim for the higher-ups in House Stark while this chaos is happening, I could totally see something like that. And as far as the way that Sansa dies being poisoned, that's sort of poetic justice for the way that, like I mentioned before, Cersei takes out her enemies. Now, I personally would hate it if Sansa dies this way, but I think we're guaranteed to lose at least one more Stark before this show's over. So if I had to choose, my two choices would be Sansa and Bran. Bran has a giant role to play in killing the Night King, so I think Sansa may be the last Stark who has to die, according to this leak anyway. But continuing on. Now, the last little parts of this leak, and this is obviously part 1 because there's a part 2 coming up that explains the very final moments, but we're only given a snippet of a synopsis for episode 5, and it says episode 5 starts with a montage of Bran and Sam describing the original Long Night, and the scene is intercut with more footage from the Night King's birth. And that's put in, you know, quotations, meaning like this moment right here when the Night King was initially created. It is revealed that he was not the first attempt, and there have been many others like him. Now, this relates back to the end of episode 4 with the Night King supposedly being died. Bran did mention that he thought it was weird that the Night King didn't shatter like all of the other White Walkers when they're killed. Bran mentions that it's weird that the Night King didn't shatter in the ice. So then you remember at the very end of the episode, we see his body, Viserion's body, all of them being piled up and getting ready to be burned. But then the Night King opens his eyes and then the dead starts raising. So I 100% can get behind this whole the Night King's death is a fake out and he's sort of taken out early on only to be revealed that that's not how you kill him. I've theorized heavily on this channel about many different ways to kill the Night King. Most recently, my favorite way is when I did a bunch of deep diving into Bran and this whole scene right here, and I'll link this video down below in the description. But basically, I think one of the only ways to guarantee to kill the Night King is by removing the dragon glass from his chest. This is what initially gave him the powers, so it would make sense if they were to shove a sword, like a Valyrian steel sword, through that, and that pushed the dagger out of the Night King's chest. This would be the way to most likely kill him. So if Bran and all of them are in the middle of the battle and they think, you know, they're able to take him out, supposedly with Jaime killing the Night King with his Valyrian steel sword, maybe he doesn't aim for the right spots. Who knows? But one thing I can say is the reason why I chose this one to cover in this video is that some of these ideas have been mentioned in previous plot leaks, but as far as Sansa being poisoned and killed and that's the way she goes out, that's 100% unique to this, and also the fake out of the Night King's death. Now those two reveals rather, like Sansa being poisoned and the Night King not actually dying when they think he's dead, those are totally in line with the theme of Game of Thrones. And with this being the final season, in my opinion, makes 100% sense to do these sort of fake outs like this. This is the last time we're ever going to see Game of Thrones on television in this iteration anyway, and everything needs to be intensified times 1,000. Now, one thing that I sort of glazed over there, and this was one of the plot points that made me think this may have some sort of legitimacy to it, is the fact that it's mentioned that Yara is not with Euron. Now, there was a scene that was filmed in Ballantoy Harbor in which we weren't exactly sure what was going on. It was towards the end of the filming season, and from the pictures that we were given, we could only tell that there were a few characters. We couldn't tell who they were, but that they were sitting by a campfire. So whatever scene that involved with, it's just like a quick jump back to Ballantoy or back to Pike at some point in season 8. And the fact that this plot leak was one of the few that included that little bit, it made me think it was, somewhat legit, like I just mentioned. But also, there are a few other things that I'm going to mention in part 2 of this, like one of the ways that in the very last moments of the show, like what happens in episode 6 with basically Daenerys and all of her forces showing up at King's Landing, burning it down, and then capturing Cersei, that 100% fits in line with some of the filming leaks that we've seen of these unsullied soldiers and these Dothraki heading towards the gates of King's Landing, and this is after that Battle of Winterfell. So I'm going to talk about that more in part 2. I do think you guys are in for a treat with that one. One thing I don't like about these plot leak videos is that some of them, for the plot outline ones, they skip around so much and we never get like a full picture of the season. So if you guys want me to cover some of the complete fan fictions, then let me know, and I'll find some of the best ones and I'll make a little video on those. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you could please slap a like on this video. The like goal is going to be 422. Also, make sure you're subscribed and then make sure you have your notifications turned on. I want to give a super special shout out to every single member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/SirHuntsReviews. I want to thank you all so much for watching. My name's Mark, and this has been Sir Hunt's Reviews. Just thought I'd add in this little Easter egg. The area that I live in is actually expecting a Category 4 hurricane within the next 48 hours. So if you don't get a video from me for the rest of the week, I do apologize, and I'll try to live stream something, maybe during the course of this hurricane. Who knows? But stay tuned and make sure your notifications are turned on so that way you get alerted when I drop the next video.